What's up, everybody? Welcome to Gojo with Mike Golick Jr. That is me. With me, as always, a man who is definitely in my Spotify year-end wraps for top 5 podcasts to listen to, Brandon Newman. Brandon, what's going on?
Oh, nothing, Mike. You caught me in between naps. How are you doing?
I'm good. You look well-rested and cold as shit.
Oh, cold as hell. Cold as hell. You might have met me in this hat. No, this is, yeah, it's cold. It's cold right now, and it's that time of the year. It's December.
That is true. I've heard that about December once or twice. You know what is not cold?
What's it like in Southern California right now?
Cold relative to the standard out here. I've had to put on a sweatshirt and sweatpants now instead of just shorts and a sweatshirt, which is my uniform for a while during the fall here. Very comfortable fat man attire. So it's been an adjustment. Thoughts and prayers. They're not required, but they're appreciated.
Yes, nothing colder than 50 degrees in Manhattan Beach.
Tell you, man, when it rolls off the ocean, it's different.
I'm with you.
You know what is not cold, Brandon? That would be my heart. You know why?
And why is that? No.
You know what? It's one of those things. It's little, but I didn't want to gloss over it. I joked about that with you off the top. Seeing the amount of people that tweeted us about being in their year-end top 5 listen to podcasts on Spotify Wraps, legitimately heartwarming. Like, I didn't know this about me, and I understand that it is like kind of insecure and it sounds like faux humility, but it's not. I just didn't know. We started in May, so I wasn't sure if we would end up. And when I woke up in the morning and saw people start posting that, part of me was like, damn, like I hope we wind up in a couple of these. And we had a bunch of people tweet at us that we were in their top 5 most listened to for the year on that app. So we appreciate everyone who checked that out. In all seriousness, that was like cool and heartwarming to see, especially alongside other podcasts that I respect. You know, the Greenlight Pod with Chris Long, the Right Time with Bomani Jones, Mina's podcast, the Mina Kimes Show, all the guys over at The Ringer. So yeah, it was cool to see that, you know, it was peers that we were alongside. That was nice, and just the number of people that took the time to point that out was not lost on us. So a sincere thank you to everyone who has listened so far. Like, we don't talk about this stuff much because we're focused on just trying to make something good, but to see it received well, at least in the early going here, was really, really cool.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Mike, because we do get so focused on the news and topic du jour that we don't think about everyone listening. We always think about everyone listening, Mike, but basically our Spotify numbers are strong but mighty. Like the fact that we're there and then making it up there with the others, great podcasts that have been around for years.
It's not even that for me. It's just like, you know, people have a choice in this. And that was one of the things that was always interesting to me about radio versus podcasting when I made the switch was radio, it's a station in your car. And when you're rolling past, you've got limited options, especially when you're driving around, of what you can click into. When I was at ESPN, people would click over because it's ESPN. And you were never sure how much of that was because of you. Here, there's no hiding from it. It's people are going to choose to come and spend their time with you or not. And when anyone makes that choice and makes it over and over again, especially with us being a daily show, that's not lost on me. It is greatly appreciated. Like, that's a decision that you all have sitting around and listening, and that is something that means a lot to us. We said that from day one, and so I just wanted to stop and say thank you. We don't get a ton of time to do that. You know, when we get holidays and New Year's and all these arbitrary times, or something completely made up by a company like Spotify Wraps, it is a cool chance to kind of stop and take a second to sort of catalog this and go, all right, like, there are people that have made this choice with us, and however many of you are out there, we appreciate every single one of you.
Amen. Thank you.
Amen, amen. I do believe. With that in mind, we got another great one for you today. We hope you keep downloading, subscribing, rating, and reviewing. We hope people saw that and tell their friends and bring more people to the party. We always love that. Yes. Make sure you leave us a 5-star rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And check us out on the DraftKings YouTube channel under the Gojo with Mike Golick Jr. playlist there, so you can see us and the great show we've got for you today. Awesome guest as the college football playoff penultimate round of rankings came out. We had the TCU Horned Frogs checking in at number 3, getting ready for their Big 12 title shot against Kansas State. Their head coach, Sonny Dykes, is going to come and join us for a little conversation about what the season's been like. Max Duggan is quarterback, who's a Heisman contender that he hopes is in New York, and a bunch of stuff about Sonny's journey from those early staffs at Texas Tech with Mike Leach and so many of the names now that are all around college football, Dave Aranda, Cliff Kingsbury, even Lincoln Riley, and a couple of those other guys, all coming from that staff back in Lubbock. Fascinating, and some very interesting musical similarities between me and Sonny that we can get to. But Brandon, we'll get to that, and by far the best movie that will come out in the next calendar year, we will break down with full force today. Academy, don't fuck this up. You got a golden opportunity here. Don't waste it. But Brandon, in the meantime, we got people getting very comfortable out here talking about quarterbacks in the NFL. And yes. I'm actually not too concerned with the specific gossip in these cases, but I think they're both loosely related enough to kind of make a point about the things we get right and wrong discussing leadership in football and leadership in general. For anyone that missed it, we had two separate but interesting stories. The first involved Russell Wilson, the quarterback of the Denver Broncos, and a report that came out. It was Russell Wilson's birthday this week, and apparently his wife Sierra threw them a birthday party, I think at their house that's got the 12 bathrooms that we talked about before, which I still want to know which one is the do not disturb full-on pooping bathroom, but that's a story for another day. Mike Kliss, who covers the Broncos for 9 News in Denver, put out a tweet, and in that tweet, he said, there's been some gossip about Russell Wilson standing in the locker room. Here's some context. Per source, Wilson's wife Sierra threw him a birthday party last night, and it, quote, looked like about half the team was there on a player's day off. Why do people have to be so hurtful? I am not legitimately sure what point that tweet is trying to make.
Yeah, like I understand coming from Russell Wilson because it's fun and he's having a down year, and it's fun even when he's having an up year. But like, is this shade?
That's what I'm saying. Like, this is, and everyone's made the comparison. I never saw Draft Day because I didn't think a movie about the draft, even as much as I enjoy Kevin Costner, was anything I wanted to waste my time with. And apparently there's a plot in the movie where one of the players they're scouting, they go and nobody went to his birthday party, and that was a leadership red flag for all of them. Half of a 53-man plus 10 or 13, whatever the practice squad is at right now, making it on their off day to a birthday party seems legitimately impressive to me. Like, Brandon, you know this, football locker rooms are big places. College is obviously double the size, but in the NFL, it's still big rosters, bigger than any of the other 4 major sports in North America, with a variety of guys in age ranges in different places of their life that have different things going on over the course of the given week. And so for half to make there seemed like an extraordinarily high number.
Yeah, I'm more shocked. I'd be shocked if anyone from the defensive side of the ball was there, Mike. Like, that's the type of like tight-knit you know what I'm saying?
Well, like, yeah, like not everybody fucks with everybody else in a locker room. And some of that, like you said, is positional proximity. You don't spend as much time with a lot of guys on offense, especially if they're not your peers age-wise. Like, that's a given. You just don't get along with everyone, and you don't have time to spend time with everyone. You know them. You try and have a professional relationship with them. And if there's some of the leaders on your team and you are also in that group, you've got enough of a bond to go and try and, you know, be a part of making some of the leadership decisions for the team, but everybody does not get along. It's not some big band of brothers the way people all want to make it out to be.
This actually checks out, Mike. When I was in San Francisco for Super Bowl 50, Vernon Davis had a birthday party at a sushi restaurant that I was at with the rest of the people from Fox, right? I was in the bathroom, and guess who was there? Peyton Manning and his big ass head. So he was in the bathroom trying to use his head to block his head for his face from me seeing it in the bathroom. And I was like, okay, I see that you're Peyton Manning, right? And I go over there and look by the rest of the table, Mike. There isn't a soul from the defensive side of the ball from that Denver Broncos team that was at that sushi restaurant, and they were all in town for the Super Bowl. Like, I just want to say, like, birthday parties, it's not like when you're in 5th grade when everyone gets an invite to the skating rink. Like, this isn't the same shit.
But even if you're not on a sports team, if you're an adult having a birthday party, you already know that not everyone you know makes it to that because people have lives.
Yes.
Like,
Listen, when you get married, when people, if anyone out there gets married, everyone you invite to the wedding isn't going to show up, right? And then there's a certain percentage that you're going to find out aren't going to come the day of because they cut their legs shaving in the bathtub getting ready for the damn wedding. So yes, I think holding Russell Wilson accountable for how many people show up to his birthday party is kind of low-hanging fruit compared to coming at him for about how many touchdowns he's thrown this year.
Right. This is just a dumb thing in a sequence of very weird shade thrown at Russ. Like, do I believe Russ is a little bit goofy, kind of like, you know, all of those things, kind of aloof, and a little bit of the ultimate quarterback robot when it comes to I will say and do the right things at all time? Yes. Do I believe that we need to make some far-reaching conclusions about his birthday party and his leadership? No. And Nathaniel Hackett and a couple of the guys on the team came out and said as much, that all this stuff about Russ losing the locker room, because this also coincided with reports starting to come out that Russ had lost the locker room, and everyone pointed to the Mike Purcell blow-up in that game on the sideline. Like, football sidelines are chaotic places where the love language is direct confrontation. I always said one of my favorite things about sports is that you've got enough trust built up with the people you go to work with where you can have a knockdown, drag out argument if you want, and then turn the page the next play and be good with it. Because you've got to communicate fast or bad shit is going to happen. People are going to get hit, you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to lose games. And so you've got to be able to have a very blunt assessment. I mean, fuck, I can remember in high school football, me and my best friend who played O-line next to each other basically stopped to practice motherfucking each other at the line of scrimmage because we both had a different idea of who was supposed to do what on a screen we were running. And everyone else on the team, because we were two seniors, we were two captains, let us stop and do it, the coaches included. And when we got done, they said, all right, you guys are good? And we said, yeah. And we went on with the practice because that's how that shit goes sometimes.
Yes, Mike, but you guys are best friends. And Russell Wilson is parachuting into this environment and trying to set this culture that the Walmart people are trying to set. So there's a little bit to this, but not with the birthday. And I do agree. It is hot and tumultuous over there on the sideline, but there is something different with the Russell Wilson.
Well, and listen, I understand, like you said, coming into a new environment where people aren't used to seeing the way Russ operates, because he grew into this in Seattle. He came in there as a rookie, and he grew into what he is now there. They're getting the finished product of Russ without the outcomes that Russ had over in Seattle. And this is what happens when we see with Patriot assistants all the time. When you go to a new environment and expect to be treated like the guy from the old environment without producing the results, we see that not go over so well with those teams. And I'm sure part of this for Russ is the way he approaches this might not go over well with some people. There are people in that locker room that vouch for him. No locker room is just a monolith. Not everyone is ever going to fuck with everyone, right?
Yes, true. But I feel like if we're talking about Russell Wilson, as much of a robot as he is, Mike, I really do. I'm interested in his feelings. Like, if we're going to play Inside Out, like from Disney Pixar, like, I want to know what those emotions in Russell Wilson are thinking, actually. Like, is he hurt that the locker room didn't show up? Like, did he expect everyone to show up? You know what I mean? Like, did everyone RSVP?
If you expect everyone to show up at your birthday party, you're a level of narcissist that blows me away. As an adult. True. You're one of the people that probably post birthday week on your social media accounts.
But everyone's wife isn't Sierra, and if it's like Sierra was the one inviting them, it's like, are you going to say no to Sierra? And it's like, I guess somebody's like,
if I've got to take my kids to a dance recital, or if I've got to stay and do treatment, if I'm a back end of the roster guy that probably has to, like, there's any number of normal life reasons that adults have to not be able to go to birthday party events. And so that one, I think is really, and all of this when we talk about leadership at the quarterback spot is this idea that And Russell Wilson is living proof to this, right? Russell Wilson is a living testament to this idea that we demand the quarterback be a leader in these places. And Russ has felt that so much and tried to carry himself so much as the CEO, providing us the perfect mantle to hang all of the things that we want to think are true about quarterbacks onto this player for his entire career, which is an interesting segue into the next headline that came up today, and one that I think is interesting for different reasons. Patrick Peterson, who is with the Minnesota Vikings this year, having kind of a resurgent season for him, like a little bit of a throwback year as far as his physical ability. He has a podcast that he does called the All Things Covered podcast. It's him and Brian McFadden over at CBS Sports. And on that podcast, they were talking about something we mentioned on this podcast. Kyler Murray after the game saying schematically we were pretty fucked in that fourth down call that ended up going wrong for them. And I believe that's what Bryant McFadden was referencing when he said Kyler Murray said some things publicly about their scheme that weren't exactly a glowing endorsement of their coach. And Bryant said the funniest part to me in what I'm about to say from Pat P is that right before Patrick Peterson speaks, Bryant McFadden saying, I wish these were things that he had kept inside the locker room. And he said, because it seems like he doesn't really vibe with his coach like that. And right after he says that about keeping it in the locker room, Patrick Peterson, who was a teammate with Kyler Murray, was in the Arizona Cardinals organization until 2020, said, Kyler Murray don't care about nobody but Kyler Murray. Like, the side-by-side of those two statements, the irony of it is not lost on me.
Yes, Mike, but you got to think where Patrick Peterson's coming from. He is having that resurgence season, so much so that after that big win against who the Vikings beat, was it the Bills or the Cowboys?
No, the Vikings got their asses whooped by the Cowboys.
Yes. It was the Bills in that very crazy way. But at the end of that game, Mike, you remember he was looking at the social media guys like, where's Steve Keim at? I got to talk to Steve Keim. I got words for Steve Keim. Like, Patrick Peterson still has a vendetta, in the battery in his back is everything that happened with him at the Arizona Cardinals.
That is true, because earlier in the podcast audio, too, they were talking about what's gone on and how Cliff Kingsbury was probably going to be the scapegoat for that. And Pat Peterson did point out, and the guy who hired him will still have a job, meaning Steve Keim. So yes, there absolutely is that animus there, but there was also a clear willingness. And God love Bryant McFadden. We've all been there before, where the person you're talking to on air says something you weren't prepared for. Because Bryant McFadden after that was not sure how to handle that grenade that had just been dropped into his lap by Pat Peterson. And so we got a response. Kyler Murray tweeted at Pat P and said, this isn't true. You're on some weird shit. You got my number. And if you really felt like this as a big bro or mentor, you're supposed to call me and tell me, not drag me so your podcast can grow. Brandon, what'd you make of this? Whose side are you on?
Well, as a podcaster, Mike, Kyler Murray's not wrong. Drama is one of the leading sellers of a single piece of audio. Trust me, I know in my time at Barstool Sports with the president over there. I think we're at a new time, Mike, where this is why these people have a platform, is to tell us the actual juice from the people that are actually doing the thing still. Like this, the Tyreek Hill clapping at Patrick Mahomes, Tua being the most accurate quarterback he's ever had. That was clearly shade, but there's something about this, Mike, that I like, because it validates what we've all been thinking, and I don't know if that justifies him breaking the locker room code or not.
Well, and this is very similar to the Russell Wilson situation, right? Where you had KJ Wright and Richard Sherman going on a podcast talking about how Russ got treated different than what everyone else, wasn't held to the standard that the defensive guys were. Now, that's a little bit different, because that sounded like they didn't enjoy the fact that he got so much credit for the success that was going on there, and then didn't get the blame when things went wrong. They felt like he was protected, but I don't know if anywhere in there it was necessarily he's a bad guy. It was, we didn't feel like he was in it with us in the same way, which is, as we talk about leadership in these conversations and like what your ideal version of a leader is, I think one of the things that people always try and hold up is this idea that you're in the fight with us, right? You're one of those people that's not going to be above being with the rest of us, even if you're paid differently, even if you're treated differently by the outside world. You're going to put your hand in the pile with us. You're going to be a servant leader. You're going to be there for what other guys need. You're going to lead different guys differently. You're going to try and get the best out of everyone by having those relationships, by having it matter to you, being the most highly paid, most important person in the building. Like, those are all things that I think generally as leadership traits, if we can point to tangible stuff, it's seeing it matter to someone on the day-to-day. That's why that first guy in, last guy out shit is something that so many people talk about, because even if I think it's a bit ridiculous that you as another grown man and a professional would need to see somebody else working hard in order to go work hard for yourself, we know that's kind of how, right, exactly. It is your job. And so, but we also know that these guys do help set the tempo, and that leading from the front is a real thing, and setting those habits and standards for how we're going to go as a team usually falls on those guys. So those are all ideal leadership traits. All that is to say, do I believe, like you said, that some of the things that we've consistently heard going back to before the season, when Chris Mortensen was tweeting about the views of Kyler Murray and that organization as they were negotiating their contract, do I believe some of that stuff to be true? Yeah, probably. We've never really heard a ringing endorsement of Kyler Murray as a leader in that organization. So could I buy what Patrick Peterson is saying? Yes. To your point, this is that new media thing that we always hear from Draymond. This is the world where we get access to guys that are currently in these locker rooms. And this is stuff that I'm sure fans love, is the guys' true feelings about their teammates. And I understand it's real. It just doesn't make it any less comfortable for me. And maybe this is starting to feel, because like Patrick Peterson's our age. Like, it's not like I'm talking about some Gen Z player who grew up in a different time. Pat P is our age, and Pat P is comfortable enough in his standing in the league and what he has accomplished as a player to feel like he can stand out and say this pretty credibly. And maybe like KJ Wright and Russell Wilson, or KJ Wright and Richard Sherman, they felt like they had enough backup or truth on their side to say these things and figure that the rest of the guys on that team weren't going to push back too hard, or that they would be supported in the way they did that. Like, there was safety in that position in their minds, in maybe the same way that there's safety in this position for Pat P's mind. It still is something that I and maybe this is my own just personal proclivities, I wouldn't be comfortable with. Like, we played with plenty of guys that I could stand up here and say something about the way they led or the way they did things, but to me it always comes off as salty, or kind of like Kyler intimated, like you're trying to grab at attention for your own sake by taking something that was a relationship inside the locker room and putting it outside without any prompting before that. And so in that sense, I kind of agree with Kyler that, like Brian McFadden said, this would have been something to be handled in private, or just handled and phrased differently, right? There's a difference in saying Kyler only cares about Kyler, or saying, I don't think Kyler's maximizing his ability as a leader for that team. I think you've got a 4-8 football team where everyone's pointing at the coach, and you're not helping with the statements you're making in public. You're the highly paid quarterback on that team. It is your job to go out and help remedy these things. Right, wrong, or indifferent, that's what you're paid to do at that position in this sport. There's a difference between those two things, and one's not nearly as sexy as the other, and Kyler pointing that out isn't exactly wrong.
No, but also I think Patrick Peterson, from his vantage point, pointing out why he thinks, because everyone already knows that there's been issues with Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray as a leader since he got there, right? I think someone who's been in the locker room painting the picture of why, even if it is shady and it seems like there's something deeper there, I think it does help, and I think I do appreciate it. But here's two factors that are going in to where Patrick Peters is coming from. Like you said, he's our age, right? Yep. That means he's an old head in the NFL, right? As Kyler Murray mentioned, he got to Arizona when Larry Fitzgerald was the leader of that team, right? And Larry Fitzgerald's version of leadership is akin to something that Tom Brady would want around. Why they're together, they're doing their own podcast together, right? So like that's a very high level of leadership. And then the second part of it, Mike, is defensive guys are always in their feelings about the preferential treatment of quarterbacks, especially the quarterbacks or the wide receivers of the defense in corners. Like, they're the divas, and they expect that same type of special treatment, and they don't get that, right? So I just feel like those two factors are probably under the surface with Patrick Peterson, outside of him already having issues with Steve Keim, that he actually does have an issue with Kyler Murray just because he's thriving in a place that basically pushed him out.
It's interesting though. He's not really thriving. Like, he's been very good individually, but that team peters off every year. Yeah, I guess
contract.
I guess that is true. To that point, you got the only kind of validation that really matters in the NFL, and that's, did the team like you enough to pay you? And again, I don't really begrudge Patrick Peterson for having his opinion and stating if he feels comfortable with it. I disagree with the method of doing that, just as someone who's in the same business on this side of podcasting and being in the media, but it is just a very different time and place we're at. But it does all boil down to, too, quarterback, you're always expected to be the leader, even if that's not your personality. Like, I don't necessarily, there's a different conversation if you want to talk about being selfish versus not being a good leader, but we expect that at that position. When you're paid highly, you're expected to shoulder a certain amount of the load, but the bottom line is leadership is not for everybody. And if that is true, that Kyler Murray's just not wired like that, it's not the worst thing in the world if your ability can go out and get you out of that jam, if you still go out and produce. Like, we play with plenty of guys. I don't need you to be the world's best leader. I need you to do your job, and I need us to have success. And if your leadership isn't within you, then that's fine. Let the leaders on the team, the people who that comes more naturally to, do their thing, and just make sure you're where you need to be when you need to be. I know it's not always that simple because, again, NFL locker rooms are different. The money and all that changes the dynamic, but that's just kind of where I sit on most of this stuff.
Yeah, I hear you, but I do want something a little bit more sexy, though. Like, I want to hear something like Patrick Peterson say, well, he can't be a leader because he's not tall enough. You know, like, I want something.
Hey, listen, he can't say anything meaner than that graphic that they put up during that broadcast of him and Justin Herbert already did there. So they got that covered on that front. So lots of interesting folks dishing on quarterback in the court of public opinion. Always fun, but not nearly as fun as visiting with someone currently near the top of college football right now. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, TCU head coach Sonny Dykes is going to join the podcast as they get ready for their Big 12 championship matchup against Kansas State.
Hopefully we're not running too late. I apologize.
No, all good, Coach. I know you guys got plenty going on right now. You guys are the center of the football universe, so they're the good problems to have, I guess, right?
Yeah. I've been way outside the center of this universe before, so I guess it's good to be in it.
And I mean, Coach, that's got to be kind of wild, right? I mean, coming over in year one where you're still trying to kind of install your program, and now at the same time, you've got to kind of combat all this noise that comes with being as good as you guys have been.
Yeah, it's been fun. I mean, it really has been. I mean, look, it's been pretty cool because we weren't saddled with a bunch of really big expectations at the beginning of the season. And I think it's allowed us to probably enjoy it maybe a little bit more than you normally would when you're picked to be this team and you have all these expectations. And so, for us, we've kind of taken a one game at a time approach, and we haven't gotten too high. I really like this group. I mean, we finished the season 12-0 the other day after beating Iowa State, walk in the locker room, and, we do this little riff rams chant after the game after we win. And man, our guys, as soon as we broke, they were moving on. They were already talking about the Big 12 championship game and playing against Kansas State and just everything like that. And so this team does have a lot of maturity, but it's been fun, like I said, just because they just kind of enjoy playing and we don't worry too much about what happened. We're kind of ready for whatever's next.
Did you have to have a conversation about that at any point during the season, about a lot of the attention that was going to come with the success they'd had?
Not really. I mean, it's funny. I think you kind of try to take a measure of your team. As we started moving in the top 25, I thought, well, at some point we'll have to have a talk about ignore the rankings. And, I kind of would walk around day to day and never heard the players one time talked about being ranked. Then as we started to kind of move up in conference rankings, I expected to have to say, well, look, don't worry about the conference standings, just never heard anybody talking about that. And then kind of the same thing once we got into, the college football playoff rankings and all that. And really, truly, our players, I've never heard our players talk about it one time. Never heard them talk about, who needed to win or what needed to happen in order to get there. They just have been a really, really focused group and have really bought into the whole idea of, look, we just got to prepare ourselves to go play well, and then we'll kind of add it all up at the end of the year and see where we're at. And so that's made it fun. It really has. I think it's taken a lot of pressure off of us, taking a lot of pressure off the players, and has made the ride much more enjoyable.
Coach, speaking of enjoying the ride here, and I certainly want to look at the Big 12 championship coming up, talk about your quarterback, but I do have to ask, in all of this, as you guys have had the rides, and I want to show it off. I've got it here, glory to Hypno Toad on the hoodie. What was the pitch meeting like for what has now become a college football sensation for Hypno Toad and these wild videos you guys have been putting out after wins?
Yeah, you know what? I wasn't invited to those meetings. Yeah, it's really been cool. I mean, I saw the video at a basketball game last year, and it was one of those things where I saw like half of it. And I was kind of driving home with my wife after the game, and I was like, "Hey, did you see that?" And she was like, "Yeah, what was that all about?" I was like, "I don't really know, but it was pretty cool." So then next time we went to the basketball game, we saw it, and it's oddly strange and kind of appealing and interesting, and then, and then we decided as a football program, our marketing people just said, "Hey, look, let's stick it on a t-shirt and let's try to play this thing up." And it just blew up. And so it has like a weird effect on our crowd. It seemed to have had a weird effect in some of our games. When we're not playing well, they'll play the video and all of a sudden we start playing well. And so it's like the saying goes, all hail the Hypno Toad.
Man, Coach, you're not kidding. So I got to be out in Fort Worth for 2 of your guys' games this year, for Oklahoma State and for Iowa State. And the crowd reaction the minute the video pops up and people start going is unparalleled. I didn't see anything like that as far as a reaction to one singular thing this football season.
Yeah. It's like I said, I think it appeals to the weird, dark side of all of us. Yeah. They've done a cool job of creating these clips and doing this stuff. And we have some really creative people in our marketing department, and it's kind of just blown up. It's been really fun.
Coach, speaking of other things that have blown up this season, Max Duggan does not begin the season as a starter. He's now getting ready to quarterback a team in the Big 12 championship game. What has surprised you most about Max this year, and why do you think he deserves to be one of the guys in New York for the Heisman at the end of this year?
Well, I do think he's probably meant more to this football team than any other player in college football could. I mean, he really has. Max is really good statistically. You look at his numbers and you go, yeah, these are good numbers. And he does all the little things from a statistical standpoint that great quarterbacks do. But what he does more than anything else is he just elevates our team. He really does. I mean, the guys respect how tough he is. They respect how dedicated he is. He's not like a big vocal guy, not like a rah-rah guy, but he's got a respect from everybody in the program that's just really unparalleled. And I think this program has taken on his personality. The guys are tough. The guys are kind of low key. They're all about business. And so it's been his personality that's permeated and really kind of think in a lot of ways changed our program. And he's just done such a fantastic job of doing the little things in games. If you watch us play, there's been times this year where we've made a bad call and he bails us out by pulling the ball down and running. Or there's times when we've had to have a critical play in a game, and he's been able to somehow get the ball across the first down line to keep the chains moving, and just he does all these little bitty things that you add them all up, and it becomes a huge thing. And it's really moved the needle for us. And I think, certainly we wouldn't be where we are right now without him and just who he is and his personality and his demeanor. And it's meant everything really to our program.
And Coach, what was, the conversation like with him? Obviously, he goes into the season. He's not in the position that he wants to be here. Was there ever a moment where you saw him get down or anything like that?
Not really. I mean, obviously, I called him in my office and I told him, hey, look, we're going to go with another guy. And I said, but look, here's how these things work. I said, I've done this before, and it's worked out really good for the person that didn't win the job, as long as you'll stay with us and keep working. And he goes, hey, you don't have to worry about that. He just said, look, I got it. It's not what I want. But he said, I'll be the best backup quarterback in college football. And he really did say that. And a couple of weeks later, we go play Colorado and Chandler Morris gets hurt. He comes in the third quarter and has never looked back. He's just played so well. and has done everything that he can do to help us win. But he handled it remarkably well. I mean, Max is a really special kid, very mature. The moment's never too big for him. He never gets distracted. He's incredibly focused, and he just took that as another step in his development and his maturation as a quarterback and as a football player.
Coach, for the development of this program, and we've seen it across college football, a lot of coaches having success in their first year in a new program. The top 25 has been littered with teams that have been able to do it, most of them not to the level that you guys have. But for you, as you've been in coaching for a while, been a head coach for a long time, when you first walk on campus, what's one of the first things that you do that you think, all right, this is part of what makes a Sonny Dykes led program be able to have this kind of success or special in the way you approach this?
Yeah, I think what you got to do is you got to figure out who you are as a program. What are your strengths? And it's always building this around your players and what you have. I think sometimes you just think, okay, I'm going to pick up this manual, I'm going to move it from school A to school B, and here we go. And I just don't think that's how it works. I think that you got to come to your school, and you have to say, okay, what makes our place unique? What makes our place different? What kind of players do we have here? And let's build around our strengths and what we can and can't do. And, every school's got really big positives, and every school's got negatives, and you've got to try to address those negatives, but you have to build off the positives as quickly as you can. And so, for us, when we got here, we had a team that we thought was physical. We got into our first practices and we'd get into our inside drill, and this was a physical football team. That's a credit to Coach Patterson and his teams that he had here for a long time. They were tough and physical. We also had a lot of speed. And we said, okay, how can we have these two things and keep these two things and make sure we maintain them? And so we started to build a practice schedule that was probably a little bit different than most first-year coaches have. We had shorter practices. We put GPS devices on all our players to measure how far we were running, making sure we weren't overworking guys. And our thought was, let's don't take a 10-700 meter guy, practice him all week, and get him to the game where he's a 12 flat 100-meter guy. Let's make sure if he's 10-7 that he's playing at 10-7. And so we practiced lighter than we have in the past. Now, when we went, we made sure we were physical. We made sure we kept that edge that was already here. But at the same time, we needed to keep our guys safe and sound, and we needed to keep them fresh and keep them fast. And so that's kind of what we've tried to do really from the beginning is, okay, let's play off these strengths. And hopefully as our program gets a little better, we'll have a little more depth. We can have a little bit longer practices because we have more bodies that we can work. But here on the front end, we had really 18-period practices from the get-go. And I think the reason we did that was because we had to. We had to. We wanted to keep them fresh and fast.
Coach, you're talking about a lot of adjustments, and part of that's also, adjusting to the modern game, the transfer portal, NIL, everything around the sport. You've been around this for so long, obviously also seen it through your father's eyes for so many years as a coach. Has it been difficult to kind of make that transition? Because you hear a lot of coaches, I think, talk about how difficult so many of these changes are and the challenges that all these new elements present in college football.
Yeah. I think what we tried to do really from the beginning was, whether we like the transfer portal, NIL, whatever, take that out of the equation. It is what it is, and it's the way the game's going to be played these days. And let's figure out how to make sure it benefits us and figure out ways to use it to our advantage. And we were at SMU when the transfer portal thing began to happen, and our thing was, look, we're in Dallas, Texas. There's a lot of great high school football players in Dallas, Texas that left. Let's make it easy for them to come home and play in front of their family and friends. And so that's what we did at SMU. We became a transfer-friendly program, and it helped us get better. We've done the same thing here, being in DFW as well. And, we had 13 transfers this year, and 3 of them made all conference. And so, we've had guys that have come in here and have been big contributors to our program. Some of our best players, some of our best leaders have come from the transfer portal. And from the NIL perspective, we're really lucky. We have a very big fan base that is really committed to big time college football. And so they've helped us with our NIL stuff as well. And so it's been it takes a village to have a good football team, and it takes a lot of different things coming together. And certainly those two things have been important for us getting the program going, especially here early.
Do you think you guys can kind of be the face of the Big 12 as it goes through this change in the next couple of years because of that?
Yeah, I think we do. I mean, I think a lot of these teams in the Big 12 probably think that as well, but look, we're lucky to be in the DFW Metroplex where some of the best high school football in the world is played. And just because of that, we're always going to be very fortunate to have access to a lot of really good high school football players.
Coach, so much of your staff, so much of your background, it has these tentacles to Texas high school football. How unique is that relationship? You've been out of the state of Texas. You were at Cal. How unique is being in Texas and having to sort of nurture those relationships that you've got with the high school coaches in the area?
Yeah, that's critically important. I mean, look, Texas high school coaches are the best. I mean, those guys are really dedicated to their craft, work incredibly hard. You drive through Texas, you see the football stadiums, you know how important it is to these communities. The investment in high school football is really strong in Texas. And so it's like anything else. I mean, look, business is based on relationships and it's based on trust and it's based on, people kind of having the same vision. And so it's been great being back here in the state where, you can go sit down, you can drink coffee in a coach's office and know all the coaches and have some kind of connection to all of them. And it's important. That's the great thing about it is, I mean, high school football is critical to the state of Texas and critical to these towns. And it's part of the personality of these towns and part of what makes Texas a special place to live.
Coach, what else is your favorite part about being back in Texas? Obviously, so much of your life has been in this state. You went away for a bit, like off the field. What was your favorite thing that you were most looking forward to once you got back?
Well, family and friends and all that. But barbecue, the Texas barbecue is pretty good. It's kind of unique and it's different. And, and just, having a chance to go places that I grew up and relive memories that I had as a child and be around people that care about you and love you. And I think that's what's been fun. I mean, it's just been great to be home. There's nothing like going home and being around people that and that part's been fun. And, it's just a great place to live, great place to raise kids, and it's been pretty special.
Are you one of the people that flies the flag for Buc-ee's? Because once I started traveling through Texas for a lot of college football, I had everyone telling me I needed to go and make the pilgrimage.
Yeah, so I've got a 14 and 11-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old son, and every time I go to a Buc-ee's, I buy them like a T-shirt or a hat or something obnoxious. And so I would walk in, I'm like, "Hey, I got you this T-shirt." My daughters just roll their eyes, and my son's like ecstatic. So we have all this Buc-ee's stuff at our house that we don't need. I've got about 10 different fryers that I buy at Buc-ee's every time I stop in there, and I'm always like, I got to get a fryer, and I get home and I've already bought it before. That's part of the Texas deal, though, man. You got to go to Buc-ee's, you got to check it out, you got to go buy something you don't need.
There we go. Do you remember the wildest shirt you've bought from Buc-ee's? Is it one of those that has like cats on it or something? What are we talking about here?
Well, my daughter has a bunch with the obnoxious logo, with the beaver with the big teeth and, and some like hot pink and yellow, colors. And like I said, every time I show up, they just roll their eyes. They're like, "Oh yeah, thanks. Yeah, we appreciate it."
There we go. Easy to load up on Christmas gifts at Buc-ee's, getting ready for the holiday rush here. Coach, part of your other experience in Texas, part of those early Mike Leach staffs, what's it like for you to look out now and see Dave Aranda and Cliff and Lincoln and all these guys where they've wound up from those early days? Like, were there any of those guys in that group that you were really surprised to see ascend to the heights that they're at now based on, where they were at as a young person or something like that?
Yeah, not really. I mean, I think it's hard sometimes to, look at an 18-year-old student coach like Lincoln Riley and imagine him being, as successful as he was at Oklahoma or at USC. But, it's funny. You could tell with him and you could tell with Dave Aranda and you could tell with some of the young guys that we were around that, these guys are different. They're special and they're going to be very successful in this profession. They just, they love to learn. They had a lot of respect for the game of football. They weren't afraid to work. And so that's usually a good combination. They're all really smart guys. And so it was fun to be on that staff at Texas Tech. It was a free exchange of ideas, a lot of really sharp people talking about things. And the great thing about Mike Leach was he always made you feel like you were important, even if you weren't, and he always acted like he listened to you, even if he didn't. And so it was really cool because you felt like you were empowered at a really young age. And, Mike has a lot to do with his success that all these guys have had.
Even with the crazy hours that you keep when you're on a Mike Leach coaching staff?
Yeah, and I think that's part of it. Learning to adapt and adjust and to kind of move on. I think that's one thing that you have to learn with Mike is, nothing's traditional. And I think in a lot of ways that expands your ability to think outside the box and be creative. And so I think we all learned probably a lot more from Mike than we even give him credit for.
Coach, just the last couple of minutes, and I appreciate all the time you've given today. I know you're super busy. I had a little birdie told me, pretty big music guy. Is that what I hear?
Yeah, I like music. Yep.
So everyone's doing like the Spotify year-end Wrapped playlist and the Apple playlist. What's been in the downloads? What's been in your ears so far this season? Have you had like a consistent playlist that you've had going through? I know a lot of coaches are superstitious.
Yeah. I've had kind of two things. Really three probably. I bounce back and forth between. So I had a lot of Chris Stapleton. Love Chris Stapleton. So a lot of his Pandora channel has been on my radio. Love Mumford and Sons. So I had a lot of Mumford and Sons on there as well. That's been another big one. And then Dave Matthews. So a lot of Dave Matthews as well. So that's kind of been my playlist during the fall. During the summer, it's a little bit different. May stick some Maroon 5 or something in there to, a little bit more of a, kind of a party thing in the summer. But but it's been pretty subdued this fall. But yeah, that's kind of what we listen to.
There we go. The calming force. Did you have because I'm with you on the Dave Matthews and growing up as a kid in Connecticut, there was no bigger event than the Dave Matthews summer concert tour. So
yeah, I've seen him about 30 times. So I'm right there with you. Yeah.
Oh man, a nice 20-minute didgeridoo solo in the middle of Bartender. What's better than that?
Oh yeah, and Bartender is my favorite song without a doubt. Yeah, so it's the best.
That's awesome. Coach, have you gotten to like meet any of these guys along the way as you've risen up the coaching ranks? Has there been like a favorite musical artist you've gotten to meet?
Yeah, so when I was at Cal, I actually got to meet. I had a guy that produced a bunch of shows at Cal, so I got to meet Marcus Mumford and his wife Carrie Mulligan, which is kind of cool. They played a show in Berkeley one time, and I became good friends with Pat Moynihan, lead singer for Train. Pat and I are close friends. Pat came to my 50th birthday party and sang "Hey Soul Sister" with my daughter, actually, which is cool. Yeah.
Oh man. Really cool.
And so, Pat's a super good guy and a fan of college athletics and just a great guy. So yeah, I've had a chance to run across those guys here in Fort Worth. Pat Green's a neighbor, and so Pat's obviously got the Texas country thing going, and known Pat for a long time. So. We love music. My wife and I, as soon as the season ends, man, we're checking concerts and trying to go and take in as many shows as we can.
Now, a little birdie told me that along the way in the recruiting trail, you met Scott Stapp, the lead singer of Creed. I just was reliving the glory of their halftime performance the other day from Thanksgiving. Tell me, what was that like? Is this like a don't meet your heroes thing, or is he everything I hoped he would be?
Yeah, he was actually pretty cool. Yeah, that was during the Creed blow up in the early 2000s. I don't know that I'll ever fully recover from the Cowboys halftime show. I think we all kind of suffered through that together. Yeah, it's funny. So he had a connection to Shreveport Evangel. He knew Brock Berlin somehow. I don't really know. And so I ran into him on the sidelines of a game once, and I kind of ended up in some strange places together. But he same thing, really cool guy and really fun to get to know him. A lot of fun to hang out with.
Oh man. All right. So I think having your daughter get to sing at her birthday party with the lead singer of Train balances out the Buc-ee's t-shirts.
It does. Yeah, it does. Yeah. She forgave me for that one.
Did you have a song like pregame playlist? My sophomore year at Notre Dame, Charlie Weiss is our head coach, and he only had one request: is that in the pregame playlist, because they had it in New England when he won the Super Bowl, he needed "Who Let the Dogs Out" by the Baha Men in the playlist, which was incredible to watch opposing teams to react to. Did you get anything on the pregame track list for you guys, or did you leave that to the guys?
No, that's about the players. So the pregame and practice music, that's all about them. So the only time I get to choose anything is when I'm in my office. I don't even get to choose anything at home. It's just only in my office.
Well, Coach, we're glad you've got control over at least the office. You've got your happy place in there, surrounded by all the success you guys have had this season. Really appreciate the time, Coach. This was a ton of fun. Best of luck in the conference championship game. I know game day is going to be there. Everyone's going to be watching. Should be an absolute blast.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate what you do for college football. Good seeing you.
You too, Coach. Thanks.
All right, take care. Appreciate it.
All right, Brandon, it's about time to turn this thing on out. You know what time it is?
You know I do, Mike. It's Christmas time, baby. All December long, you're getting Christmas fire, Christmas heat. Mike, we got to talk because I want to make sure you're comfortable with some songs that you're going to have to shoulder during this month, but I want to start us off on a bang.
All in on this. As someone who popped open my advent calendar for the first time this holiday season this morning, I am ecstatic. Shout out to my mom, who still sends advent calendars to all her kids every year. Truly the most wonderful time.
Baby, this, that, and the third is you. You, baby.
How bad does your throat hurt right now?
Oh,
bro,
my Lanta. I don't even want those problems, Mike.
Bro,
but I had to start us off.
No, I get it. Listen, like, that is the quintessential song of the season, but goddamn, Mariah's got pipes that are just really hard to match. I applaud your effort, man. That is a go out with your shield or on it type moment for you there, and I feel like she was gunning for your heart.
Yeah, I thank you. You're a friend, and that's why you applaud my effort. Me, I'm a little bit more critical. I kind of felt like how it sounded coming out. We'll get better.
You know what?
Better. It's December 1st.
Let the people decide. As always, download, subscribe, rate, and review Gojo wherever you get your podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating, and let Brandon know how much you enjoy his Christmas spirit. Remember, the best way to spread Christmas cheer, singing loud for all to hear. That's day one shit.
All to hear, baby.
Brandon, speaking of the holiday season, let's get to Terrell Owens knocking a guy out outside of a CVS. The 48-year-old former NFL star told the AP in a statement that he acted in self-defense on Saturday night when a man, quote, made offensive gestures and threatening statements to him and a fan who had approached Owens in the CVS. Apparently, the man approached him and the fan in the store, and T.O. attempted to de-escalate the situation by walking outside where that man followed. The guy kept threatening him as he did during the store. T.O. said, once again, attempting to defuse the ongoing situation, I placed myself between the fan and the aggressor. I made verbal demands asking the aggressor to stop his threatening behavior. And then the man swung at him first, so T.O. felt obligated to put his ass down. And if you haven't seen the video, the guy squared up, which I give him credit because the man is much smaller than Terrell Owens. And Terrell Owens, who at 48 years old, I was amazed to learn was 48 years old because T.O. does not look 48 years old. And he gave him that 1-2 piece, put him down on the turf, and that guy somehow got back up enough to talk about it before deciding to take his life in his own hands and get the fuck out of there.
Yes, Mike, he messed with the wrong 48-year-old. He didn't know that this 48-year-old, well, he knew who Terrell Owens was. Come on now. This 48-year-old runs a 4.5 40, and also every time he jokes about possibly making a return to the NFL, everybody starts thinking about Julio Jones. Like
how many sand workouts do you need to see from Terrell Owens doing legitimate NFL drills at his big age before you realize he might not be the one?
Oh my gosh, Mike! There was a 49ers fan that came up to him, and he said he made a threat against the 49ers fan, which obviously after that long tenure with Terrell Owens, he wasn't having that.
No, he didn't have time for that. And you know what, honestly, the worst part about this situation was my fear the entire time was, man, T.O. did this. Like, that guy could have had a gun. In the world we live in now where we see that, like, more people have firearms than ever, that's always my worry with this stuff. Like, I breathed a sigh of relief that this was just as simple as a former NFL star beating the shit out of somebody in front of a CVS, because my natural reflex is to always think about how much worse it could have been and usually is. So this feels like a blessing that T.O. just put this guy down.
Yeah, and also it's like a staple. It's like getting followed by Little B on Twitter. Like seeing T.O. or Ron Artest just randomly around L.A., it happens.
I'm looking forward to my rite of passage there. I'm hopefully not going to get knocked out in the process. Brandon, let's get to that. Former Notre Dame quarterback and one-time Green Bay Packers quarterback DeShone Kizer made a little bit of Aaron Rodgers related news the other day. DeShone Kizer, who appeared on a podcast where he was asked about his time with the Green Bay Packers, and told the story about how Aaron Rodgers apparently on the first day they were together closed the door in the meeting room and asked if Deshaun believed in 9/11. Deshaun went on to say yes. Aaron Rodgers told him he needs to do some research into that. Deshaun basically went on to recount their conversations about various conspiracies over their time together in Green Bay, the things that Aaron Rodgers would tell him, those conversations that they would have. And Brandon, all of this brought me back. Like, obviously, this isn't totally surprising with Aaron Rodgers, given what he's become in the last couple of years. Are you...
Mike, conspiracy theories are one thing. 9/11 conspiracy things are another.
They are, but for a guy who was on most people's estimation the wrong side of the COVID-19 entire experience, for him to go down that conspiracy theory path that we thought was only reserved for Kyrie Irving, like you said, I think the 9/11 stuff is in extremely poor taste.
Yes.
You know, that should be the overwhelmingly obvious at this point. But
traditionally,
yes. But this all brought me back because obviously this sounds ridiculous. And the other stuff that he talks about, like hollow earth theory and lizard people and all that, it reminded me of a time where conspiracy theories were like fun and easy fodder that we could put off to the side. Like, I have distinct memories of riding the bus at rookie minicamp, and a player who shall not be named when I was in Pittsburgh sat on the bus and was telling us about all of these conspiracy theories, like most of the same ones that are mentioned in this podcast appearance that he believed in. A race of giants that lived under the earth that had brokered a peace with the people above earth and lizard people and all that stuff. And it was fun. Like, for us, it was all fun because we all knew it was bullshit, and we just listened to him go on and entertain us during a shitty 25-minute bus ride through downtown Pittsburgh. But then somewhere along the line, these large factions of people in the dark internet decided that they were going to make this their entire worldview, and that was going to seep into polite society. And now this stuff is legitimately dangerous, and it sucks ass on a lot of levels.
Yes, yeah. Well, that's the thing, Mike. We talked about harmless conspiracy theories. Like, that's where I like to keep them. That's where you generally like to keep them. Like, here's one of my favorites. I don't know if I mentioned it on the podcast. The moon is a permafrosted space alien ship that's stuck in our gravitational pull, and that's why we can see it during the daytime as well as at night. And it was just reflecting off the sun. Like, and I see it, and I just like, I like that theory. And it's like some Star Wars shit.
Right, like, and you know what? Like, that's kind of harmless fun because you still understand that it reflects off the sun. Like, it's not anti-science. The problem is all of these conspiracies lead back to, like, being anti a bunch of generally accepted, researched thoughts and theories. But, but like, that one there is harmless fun. Like, it's like the Harry Carey thing. If the moon was made out of cheese, would you eat it type shit? Like, I'm cool with fun stuff like that. Because, again, that's not your entire personality and worldview. It's not the first thing that you brought up the first time that you and I met and were behind closed doors together, which feels a little bit different.
That's my issue with it, Mike, because when it comes to conspiracy theories and like learning about people, like, I just wish I wish she would know someone a little bit longer before, busting that out. I wait a little bit longer before I let people know that I don't believe in sharks and dinosaurs. Like, I give people that grace.
Sharks? They're here.
I know. So are dinosaurs. I mean, like, yeah. I think sharks are protecting some. We haven't done enough research into who's on the other end of those sharks attacks. I think they were getting closer to the truth.
Brandon, speaking of enraged gigantic animals, let's get to the third. The first trailer dropped for a movie that will surely win every Academy Award if there is any justice in the world. Cocaine Bear, a movie that is loosely based off the real-life story of a 175-pound black bear who ingested an entire duffel bag of abandoned cocaine in northern Georgia back in 1985. Now, that bear died a horrific death, and rest in peace to Cocaine Bear. No one deserves to go out like that. But Brandon, that bear, which had a very sad ending, is not the bear in this movie. For anyone that has not watched the trailer, run, don't walk to check this out. It is a giant animatronic bear that does cocaine, that you are reminded over and over again within this 2-minute trailer is on cocaine. The amount of people in this movie who were paid money to go out and say the line, "The bear's on fucking cocaine," too many to count. It is incredible. It is exactly like if you took the I Am Legend zombies and just made them a bear. That's essentially what this bear becomes, supercharged on cocaine. This is the entire internet essentially authored the script to a movie when this headline came out, and someone took it seriously enough to make, and I am so grateful for that.
Yeah, Mike, I agree. I do think it's riveting. I was tied into the 2-minute, 20-second trailer, Mike, but it really just felt like a very long Sour Patch commercial of like first they're sour, then they're sweet, because they're showing the bear coked up killing people, and then they're also showing the bear coked up doing very Winnie the Pooh things of just like kind of playing with his nose and skating on its back through the forest because it's high on cocaine. Like I don't know where the through line is. This like a Sharknado thing where it's also a comedy?
Oh, it is absolutely going to have comedic elements in this, 100%.
Okay.
With that being said, because we know Cocaine Bear is going to win every Academy Award, I asked the fine people of Twitter.com because a perfect 2-word combination of bear, of animal, and drug yielded this very potent result. I wanted to know, at Gojo Show on Twitter, at Mike Golick Jr. on Twitter, is it Brother Brandon or Ball Brandon now? You've changed your Twitter several times. It confuses me greatly.
It's just Brother Brandon, but you have the freedom to change the name, and right now it's just Brandon.
All right now it's just
but
Brandon.
At Brother Brandon.
At Brother Brandon, at Mike Golick Jr., at Gojo Show on Twitter. What is the best combination of animal and drug out there? I've got a few, Brandon. Tell me what you think of some of these that have come up. Randy Scott of SportsCenter fame writes in PCP Moose, which I feel like one of the common threads we're going to see is it needs to be a drug that's an upper. I don't think marijuana is going to be overly interesting for this one, watching an animal roll around on the ground and get tired and eventually nap. Alcohol would kind of have the same effect. And so PCP, also a large animal. Moose is big as shit, could do a lot of damage.
That's two dangerous ones mixed, Mike. I like that vote because mooses are... I was making sure I didn't misspeak with a plural moose. The meese, they're dangerous. They're big. They're dumb animals, and they're beautiful. But on PCP, Mike, Godzilla.
Well, speaking of PCP, Ryan Nanny from the Shutdown Fullcast says PCP possum, which I don't know if a possum's big enough, but it's definitely a scary ass animal. I don't know if you've seen their faces. They're terrifying.
Oh, of course I've seen a possum, Mike. Ugh, I don't want to see. I don't know. I feel like that would be aggressive.
This one feels right up your alley. Matt Brown, writer of the Great Extra Points newsletter, says Viagra Velociraptor, which feels like your perfect blend of horny and Jurassic Park. I feel like Horny Dinos is a spin-off franchise that could eventually combine with the Fast and Furious.
Yes, Mike. What is that raptor that used to spit in Newman's face in that movie? You know what I'm talking about? He's got the... and he spits out the stuff. This Velociraptor got to spit out semen, right?
God damn it, Brandon.
What? The Viagra Velociraptor?
It's not November anymore. You don't get to just say semen on the podcast. For the love of God. Joe Fortenbaugh of ESPN Betting says Molly boa constrictor. Molly would be an interesting one because it would be happy as shit, but a boa constrictor's joy is a terrifying thought.
Yeah, I don't know what they do with that. I feel like they just put more humans in their bellies when they're happy.
Brandon, I know you don't believe in them, but Preston Yost tweets in, what about meth shark? It's essentially like a more weaponized Jaws.
Yeah, I would say it seems like a shark on shark steroids.
Right. Bath salt's another good one, too. I think bath salts, cocaine, PCP, crack, all of those things would qualify in this one. Brett Coleman tweets in ayahuasca alligator. That'd be interesting to watch an alligator have to kind of reckon with its past in a miles-long drug trip. L. Duncan of SportsCenter fame, bath salt snakes, which...
Bath salt snakes.
She also said could be on a plane. Get Samuel L. Jackson back involved. No. You've got something.
Yeah, no, that's scary. That's scary, Mike. That's almost as scary as chimpanzees on crack.
Man, that's what I was thinking of, was like a gorilla on crack. Now we're like, because you need something like a bear size, big and mobile, that's got the ability to do some damage. And any sort of gorilla on a high energy drug, the most terrifying force of nature. I've seen. I offered up Heroin Hog. I feel like I just finished watching the end of Atlanta's 4th season, and so I saw that episode on the farm where Paperboy ends up fighting that feral hog. And if you put those things on some drugs, now maybe 30 to 50 feral hogs on drugs, you're really cooking with something.
I feel like everyone in Arizona was like, not Arizona, excuse me. Everyone in Arkansas was like, he's got a point.
Yeah, you know what? Come to think of it, I might be able to help you out with that one. If you feel like helping us out with that one, at Gojo Show on Twitter, we'll take more of those. And if you feel like helping us out in general, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, and review Gojo wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star rating and a review. Tell us about which animal and drug combined for the best movie in those reviews. And then check us out on the DraftKings YouTube channel as well, under the Gojo with Mike Golick Jr. tab. Thanks so much. Enjoy Thursday Night Football. We'll talk to you tomorrow.